Welcome to Returning to Soul, a podcast for lawyers and other high achievers seeking deeper meaning, purpose, and fulfillment in their work and lives. My name is Jessie Brown. I practiced law for 15 years before becoming a career coach and purpose guide for lawyers and other professionals. I also work as a meditation teacher, sound healer, breathwork facilitator, and forest bathing guide. And I facilitate nature-based retreats in Arizona. In this podcast, we explore what it means to return to our soul, to discover and live our true purpose. And today we have a very special guest, Leah Abrams, my friend, my coaching colleague, my coaching school classmate when we were back in coaching school. And Leah is the founder of Risewell Coaching. She is a mindfulness and somatic coach, and she also serves as a grief guide, a soul collage facilitator, a courage and renewal facilitator, and she's a published author and poet. Leah, welcome to the podcast and thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Jesse. Hi, everybody.
Um, so, Leah, I would love if you could start by sharing a little bit more about your work with our audience.
Sure. So, I have been a lot of things over the course of my lifetime, an educator, a psychotherapist, and now I'm working as a coach. And through my company, Risewell, I work with people one-on-one. I create circles and I create retreats. And a lot of my work is about developing practices that can help us be more mindful and more authentic to who we really are and bring us kind of home to ourselves. I work with all kinds of people, and I have to say that most of the people I work with are women.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you. Wonderful. Um, And Leah, we were talking before we got on, and you said this phrase that I just thought was so beautiful. And it was how to approach your role with more soul. So that really aligns well with my work and with this podcast because a lot of what I do is helping lawyers and others align their work, with what gives them a sense of meaning and purpose, with their strengths and values, or find outlets outside of their paid work, for service, contribution, creativity, or whatever. And but this idea of bringing more soul to your role, could you speak a little bit to that and what that means to
Yeah,
you?
absolutely. I think that sometimes when we're burnt out or we feel like we're ready for a change, um, it can be a big leap, right? Where you decide, I'm going to do everything differently and change my job and change my role. Or we can look at how do we approach our work and our lives differently, right? From a
Mhm.
different place. And a lot of times with the people I work with, they may not know what that even means right away, right? And so my work is to help people understand what that means, what that feels like. What are some of the things that they can do to start uh, living differently? How uh, maybe nothing in the outside world of your work life or any other part of your life changes, but something changes internally. So how do you cultivate that, right? How do you work with that? And so there are a lot of ways to do that through creative expression, which is what my soul collage work is about, and writing work is about with people, to practicing mindfulness and gratitude, and also coming together with others to do the work together because there's something very powerful about community.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you, Leah. And I'm curious, maybe we could dive in a little bit into your soul collage facilitation because that's something I have been privileged to get to do with you a few times. And it's pretty deep work. And I would love if you could share, there's probably listeners who maybe haven't been exposed to soul collage.
Mhm.
I know you facilitate in person and also virtually. So could you just share a little bit about that work?
Sure, sure. It's very near and dear to my heart, so I always like talking about it. Um, Soul collage, just sort of as a way to sort of introduce it, is a process of self-discovery in community. And so, one thing to really think about when you're looking to approach your work and your life with more soul is that there's sort of two parts to it. There's the solitary work that happens, the inner work, the inner development work, the inner purpose searching work and all of that, and also the community work where you are in community with people who are practicing the same and who hear you, who see you, who witness you. There's something very powerful about being on a journey, whatever that journey might be, and not doing it completely alone, right? So, soul collage is a way of accessing aspects of yourself that you may not be fully conscious of, even or aware of, that can help you better understand who you are so you can show up with more soul,
Mm.
basically. And it's a process of, it's a lot of fun. It's really enjoyable. You go as deep as you want or not, but you sort of allow images to come to you. You create a collage, and then that collage, the collage sort of serves as the externalizing of your soul.
Mm.
So it's not like buying oracle cards or goddess cards or anything else, which are great and fine if that's what you like to do. But it's the same process of reading from them, but you've created this card. And then we work on creating a deck of cards so that we can continue working with them. Yeah.
Wow. I know hearing you is reminding me of when I've done soul collage work with you, and I'm like, oh, I could use another workshop because it's been a few
Yeah.
months, and I'm like, it's really fascinating the insights that come through that process that, as you said, we may not be aware of.
Yeah, and it's like everything that I'll talk about today, it may sound interesting and may sound good, but the real power isn't actually doing it. It's hard to explain it, right? I mean, it's not hard to explain it, and it's not even hard to understand it, but the power of the process. And
Yeah.
that's true. I mean, and that's true with all the work I do, because when you talk about the idea of approaching your work,
Mhm.
not changing the externals yet, maybe, but approaching your work with more soul, there are other ways to do that. So soul collage is one, different types of writing practices is another to sort of, again, sort of externalize and share your stories,
Mhm.
right? And part of the soulfulness of the writing process is about being able to share your story and then being able to look at it and maybe change the story. Maybe
Mhm.
look at it from a different perspective.
Mhm.
Maybe look at it in a more soulful way, what
Mhm.
that might mean. So I do that work with people individually and in groups. And then also the concept of practicing soulfulness,
Mhm.
which is partly practicing mindfulness, practicing presence, practicing gratitude, and cultivating these abilities so
Mhm.
that you can approach your work in a different way.
Yeah, I love that. And to ground some of these concepts in, say, our listeners like everyday lives. So I'm
Yeah.
going to paint a picture for you. So say there's a lawyer in midlife and they've got a demanding job and young kids perhaps with their sports and other activities, and they're looking to bring more of these practices, more soul into their role. And they have a couple roles that we were talking: parent, in this example, a lawyer, maybe they're a partner to somebody, maybe other roles that they serve in their community or family, friends. So what would you say to somebody in that situation? Like just some
Yeah.
where they can kind of toe dip and start incorporating some practices.
Yeah, well, I just kind of want to start with the acknowledgement that in midlife
Mm.
is probably the time that people have the most roles that they'll ever have or they ever had. Because also there's that sandwich experience of having children and also having elderly parents,
Mhm.
right? So
Mhm.
the caregiving and the job and all the relationships and all the roles that you play in all aspects of your life. So I just want to acknowledge that it's a lot,
Mhm.
right? It's a lot. And so what I would then say is that creating more soul isn't something that you're adding onto the list of all the roles and
Mhm.
all the things, because that's the last thing you want to hear. I have to do something else.
Yes.
Really, I don't even have time to do and be who I need to, what I need to do and be right now. So it's really a matter of transforming your approach. And I'll give you an example, right? If you, and this is, it requires practice and it requires intention, right? So it's not just, oh, something that can automatically happen. And I can even go into sort of the nervous system and the brain chemistry around that. But if one of the things is about becoming more a conscious of the moment and slowing down.
Mm,
So it doesn't mean that you slow down so much that you can't get anything done. It means that maybe you bring a certain sense of mindfulness to how you're preparing those lunches for the kids, right?
mm,
So you are focusing in on the moment.
mm,
The truth of this is that when you actually practice that, it does not take any more time.
mhm.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
Um, I know that's maybe hard to believe, and multitasking is, but the idea of being more conscious of the multitasking, it's a very small piece of this, right?
Mhm,
When you get into bed at night, what do you do? Are you watching a movie? Are you reading?
mhm,
Or are you taking some deep breaths? And are you cultivating some meditation or mindfulness practices
mhm,
that you can do instead of something else or in addition to something else at
mhm,
the end of the day? And so throughout the course of the day, there are ways to approach your life
mhm,
a little bit differently.
mhm.
Does that make
Beautiful.
sense?
It makes perfect sense. And I couldn't help but think about how when we are mindful and doing one thing with complete attention, whether it's writing an email, responding to a colleague or client's question, making our kids lunch, whatever. Um, when we actually are doing it like that, we're less likely to make mistakes. So I do think we actually sometimes we, make a mistake or we miss something or we got to go back to the house or we forgot this or whatever is going on when we're not very present. And then that actually takes longer because then we have to go fix, whatever we messed up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And just a quick sort of physiological thing that goes on is that, in the amygdala, in this one part of the brain, which is where flight,
Mhm,
fight, fear, fawn, all that, that is an automatic. That's where we go to automatically. It doesn't take
mhm,
long for us to get to that place where we're feeling the anxiety and the tension. In another part of the brain, in the hippocampus, where you can experience calm and joy and other things, it's a choice to get there.
mm,
And because it's a choice, we have to create new patterns,
mhm,
right? We have to create new patterns that we know, oh, I have a choice right now. I
mm,
can just automatically go to that place of anxiety and tension, whatever it is,
mhm,
or I can make the choice to go to joy. And that bridge is some of the work that I do around developing different types of practices to get there.
mhm. Beautiful. I love that. And, I'm reminded you mentioned gratitude a few times, and it must have been 10 years ago. I heard, I think it was on NPR, some story about this concept of three good things. And this guy did a study, and we did it with his family and this practice. So I've done that with my kids for a while now. And I do it myself. And it's just this simple, I ask my son, okay, what are three good things from your day? And that's to kind of shift their perspective because sometimes if something amazing didn't happen, they'll think, well, no, I have nothing, nothing good. And so it's like, okay, let's work on that perspective a little bit. But I do
Right.
it for myself as well.
Yeah.
So I'm curious what type of gratitude practices you incorporate with your work, with your clients, and in your own life.
Oh gosh, there are so many, and I actually do a practice circle every Thursday called Thankful Thursday, where we work at doing different gratitude practices, and I also post every Thursday about gratitude. I mean, upon awakening, and this comes from my own experience of waking up and being like, oh my gosh, I have so much to do, and all of a sudden the weight of the world hits me. So before that happens, and it takes time, practice, the
Mhm.
first thing I do in the morning is I notice. And the first thing I notice is the light. How is the light coming in the window? Where is the light landing?
Mhm.
What's being illuminated by the light? And I've gotten so deep into this that I look forward to it helps me wake up. I'm like, oh, the light. Sometimes I wake up so early, there's no light. So I notice that too, but the lack of light maybe. But the idea that you're waking up and doing something different.
Mm. I love that. I heard some teacher maybe a couple years ago mention something, not the light specifically, but the idea of when we wake up. This is a really good time to kind of be intentional with our mindset. So I started a practice, and I haven't done this in a little bit, and probably because I'm in a different space. I did this in Phoenix, but not where I am now. And I was in a habit for a while of giving thanks literally for my pillow, for my blanket, for my bed, for the tree outside my window, for, as I opened the curtains. But it was like, and then wash my hands, for the clean water, the nice smelling hand soap, whatever. And I would just do that like immediately. And now I do some different things, but I do think the way we start our day can have a big impact.
Absolutely. And I kind of want to bring it back to the workplace, because, we're talking about bringing more soul into
Hmm.
our roles and how do you do that during the
Hmm.
day in your workplace, right? So there are also, I mean, you can do the same thing. You can sit for a moment in stillness.
Hmm.
One of the things that I think has worked a lot for, I mean, most of my career was in education. So I was working in institutions, right, which are problematic because just by the nature of the beast, right?
Hmm.
Um, of being very mindful of thanking people
Mm.
all day long. Thank you. Acknowledging other people. It takes you out of your head and your rumination and maybe some of the feelings that have been created through relationships at work, and it brings you into a place of gratitude, literally just saying thank you for the simplest thing.
Yes. And that goes a long way to creating like a better culture in the workplace because so
Yeah,
many people, I mean, I talk with lawyers all the time where the culture, it's so fast paced that it's kind of say a junior lawyer or even a more senior lawyer submits some work product, something that they were tasked with to a senior person or to a client, and they never hear anything. And they're like, the culture can be like, well, no news is good news. It's fine. If you didn't get the only feedback people get is if it's bad.
right,
Which so
right,
the people's minds, they spin. Their lawyers like, did I do a good job? Did I get it right? Was that, and maybe if they're more junior, they're looking to develop their skills, they really need some feedback. But often there's such a busy, hectic culture that people don't take a moment to thank the person. And maybe there is some feedback, this is what you did well, this is what we could develop more, this, something like
right.
that. But it goes a long way and it doesn't take a lot of time, as you said.
And actually, you can be specific in your gratitude, say thank you for turning this project in on time, or you can just say thank you. Thank you. Two words.
Yeah.
It changes the way other people feel. And
Hmm.
when you're changing the way other people feel,
Hmm.
it's changing your experience too.
Mm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm reminded as we're talking about gratitude and in the workplace, I had a client about a year and a half ago who is a senior equity partner at a big law firm on the East Coast, and she really did not like her job. And she had liked actually being a more junior lawyer, but her responsibilities and duties had changed as she had gotten more senior. So she liked practicing law. She didn't like some of the other aspects of being a business owner, as an equity partner
Mhm.
at this firm. But she didn't want to leave the role because it provided a lot of financial abundance for her family. And there were some other reasons as well. So I gave her a assignment, little homework assignment coaching, like between our sessions, just write down in your journal 3 good things about work every day. Whatever it is, anything that you appreciate, that you're grateful for relating to your job. If you can't do that, like, okay, then let's talk. If you really try and it's like, I can't find anything,
Yeah.
okay, well, then maybe it's time for a shift. But I have this little piece of art in my house in Phoenix and my kitchen. I don't know, or I think it's in or maybe, I don't know where it is. Maybe you've seen it somewhere downstairs. And it says, focus on the good and the good will come into focus. So it's like training the brain to see the good. So I thought with her, okay, if you don't want to leave and this job provides a lot for you, maybe you can shift your mindset around it and find the good. But unfortunately, when we met, she hadn't done it. She's like, I didn't do it. So I don't know.
And then, then there's the exploration of what that resistance is about. No judgment. What is that resistance about, right?
Yeah.
I want to bring in another part to this, and that is um, what the quote that's sort of attributed to Gandhi, be the change you want to see in the world.
Mhm.
And I think that when we're in toxic work environments or we're stressed out and overworked or whatever it is that is making it hard for you in your job, um, we tend to blame,
Mhm.
right? We tend to blame the environment. We tend to blame other people. We tend to blame whatever. Because first of all, blaming is a tension releaser.
Mm.
It is. It helps us sort of relieve us a little bit because we're really looking for relief. A lot of us who are frustrated with our jobs, it's because we need some relief, right?
Mhm.
We need a little bit more comfort. Um, and yet, what I've noticed for myself and for clients is that in taking ownership and say, well, I want to see a more, let's just use the word grateful community.
Mhm.
I'm gonna be grateful.
Mhm.
I'm gonna express my gratitude.
Mhm.
You can't change anyone else, and you
Mhm.
can't change an environment or a situation or an institution by yourself. And
Mhm.
maybe not ever change it,
Yep.
but you can affect it,
Mhm.
and you can change the experience for yourself.
Mhm.
And once you start to change that experience for yourself, it impacts other other people,
Yeah,
right? In ways
absolutely.
that you would be so surprised. And
Mhm.
so before you decide you're going to throw in the towel on whatever role it is that you're playing, give this a try,
Mhm.
a
Yeah,
different approach. Yeah.
absolutely. And yeah, I love that. And, you know, to pivot a little bit, before we got on, we were talking about this phrase, bringing, more soul into your role. And you used the words authenticity and presence, which I just think are such powerful words. So I'd love if you could share a little bit about how to, really be authentic in our role, in our job, and also bringing that presence. You've mentioned a little bit about mindfulness, but if you could
Yeah.
speak to those.
Yeah. So the idea of authenticity, that's a word that's kind of a buzzword now. It's
Mhm.
like a
Yeah.
very popular word, the idea of bringing your authentic self.
Mhm.
So first, I think you need to kind of know a little bit about your
Mhm.
authentic self. I know for me, I was kind of lost in the woods around that
Mhm.
with my career and in other aspects of my life too. Who am I?
Mhm.
Who am I really?
Mhm.
Am I my role? Am I this person in the world that just responds to need?
Mhm.
And so this is the coaching work
Mhm.
that needs to happen, through not just talking, but also embodiment work,
Mhm.
feeling in the body. Who am I really at my core? This is also where expressive arts like writing and soul collage and other things can help too, because getting in touch with who you really are, and there are aspects of who we are that we've always been. And
Mhm.
then there are newer aspects that we may not be in touch with because our lives have been so busy and
Mhm.
so full, and we're so reactive and responsible to others that we start to lose ourselves. So
Absolutely.
is that process of becoming more authentic and real,
Mhm.
and the question really in my mind is who am I now?
Mhm.
And exploring that with support and, with a coach or therapist or in groups or just on your own.
Mhm.
And then the concept of presence, first of all, doing meditations and mindfulness and other kinds of sort of practices that can help you be more present can also help you find your authenticity.
Mhm.
So the idea of being present is literally the idea of being present because life is happening now. What
Mhm.
happened in the past was life back then. What happens in the future, you have no control over, and you don't really know. Life is in the moment. So that idea of waking up and looking at the light, that's cultivating presence. The
Mhm.
idea of, and there's so many different practices that someone can do.
Mhm.
So the idea of tuning into your senses, maybe looking around, what are some 5 things that you can see?
Mhm.
If thoughts come into your head, just gently bring yourself back to what you're seeing. What
Mhm.
are a few things you can hear? What are some things you're smelling? So just bringing it into the present moment because you're not seeing, hearing, smelling, touching, and tasting anything in the past or the
Mhm.
future. It's
Mhm.
happening in this moment.
Mm. That's so powerful. And, as you're speaking, I'm reminded of a job I had at a law firm where thankfully this particular job, I had a nice window next to a tree and there was like a
Mm.
canal. It was in Phoenix.
Ooh.
And so I was busy, I was working, but I would just take like a minute or 2 minutes during the day, take a break from the screen, turn my chair toward the window. There would be this tree, some birds in the tree, some ducks on the canal, and I can still remember the impact that had. Just like a minute or two to watch that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that brings to mind also you can change your environment by literally changing where your desk faces,
Mm, yeah.
opening the blinds,
Hmm.
opening the window.
Yeah.
These may seem like silly little things, but they're not, and they add up, and they help you to bring that presence in, bring that sense of authenticity, and help your soul
Hmm.
expand,
Yeah.
right?
Mm, I love it. It's beautiful. So, Leah, one last thing I would love for you to speak on a little bit as we bring our conversation toward a close is the role of embodiment. You mentioned that a few minutes ago, and that, like authenticity, is kind of a little bit of a buzzword in the culture right now.
Right.
And I don't know about you. For me, I remember there was a lot of confusion. Like, what does this mean? Embodiment.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, for our audience, that this is a new term for them, a new practice, new way of being. Could you speak a little bit to embodiment?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Starting in a simple way, we have bodies,
Hmm.
right? We live in our bodies,
Yeah.
right? Our bodies, um, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for our bodies. So our
Hmm.
bodies are a big part of who we are. We tend to live from our heads. If we were going to draw a picture of ourselves in terms of what aspects of who we are most prominent, we would have one giant head and like little pieces of body underneath, because we don't pay attention to our bodies most of the time. We're in our heads.
Hmm.
And so the idea of embodiment, it's simple. It's bringing our bodies back,
Hmm.
right? Understanding that our bodies are not just as important as our heads, but contain wisdom,
Hmm.
memories, emotions, experiences, and feelings that can help us
Hmm.
problem solve, can help us get done what we need to get done,
Hmm.
right? And also carry messages for us. So when we're feeling a physical sensation or some kind of an emotion,
Hmm.
to pay attention to that, right? And to learn how to pay attention to that. So embodiment, some of your listeners may have experienced a thing called a body scan, where you just, intentionally move your awareness to different parts of the body, right? Noticing what's going on. Do you feel a temperature in that part of the body? Do you feel tension or numbness or relaxation? To just begin to wake the body up,
Hmm.
because we are not just our heads.
Hmm.
And so that's sort of like dismantling the woo woo of what embodiment is, because it's not woo woo.
No.
It's not.
Yeah. No.
And it is really kind of amazing sometimes, my own experience with it too, because I spent a lot of my life feeling numb.
Hmm. Hmm.
And coming out of that numbness, or, um, the only time I really would feel my body was when I was in pain and something hurt.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of us feel that way.
Hmm.
So the embodiment is just bringing the body back.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I love that. I think this is a very powerful practice and just way of being. It's not even really a practice. I mean, you can do practices to increase your awareness of your body, but I'm reminded of maybe 5, 6 years ago, I mean, really throughout my law career, of how much my body was speaking to me about needs that were not met in my life. So I had chronic GI issues. I had, bad carpal tunnel. I had to ice my wrist all the time. I had a lot of back pain. I had a lot of hip pain, from sitting at a desk a million hours. There's so many things, so many ways my body was speaking. Insomnia, which I don't have anymore, but I did for like decades. And there was so many ways my body was speaking to me, and I can remember I was just part of cultures like large corporate law firms where the norm is just, I mean, I knew people that wouldn't even eat or go to the bathroom. It's like, I gotta push through, I gotta push through. I don't have time for lunch, I don't have time to hit the bathroom, I'll do it when I can, not drinking water, like these types of things. It's like the culture can be that way. And also I was in a competitive cycling culture where, and this is interesting, just as a woman, we take a lot of things from the male professionals, the male professional cyclists. There were these phrases, um, shut up legs was one of them. And the other one was, I won't curse it, but it was harden the F up was a very common mantra in
Wow.
cycling. So we would
Wow.
wear like socks that would say, shut up legs or HTFU, harden the F up, these kind of concepts. And I adopted that, like, yeah. And so it was actually this mentality of like domination over the body. The body will submit to my mind and what I think is good, which tends to lead to injury and illness.
Right.
And it's just like, so what you're saying is the opposite. It's like turn
Opposite.
within, honor the body, connect with the body. What does the body want to tell us? What messages,
Well,
yeah.
you can operate the way you did for just so long
Uh-huh.
before things start to fall apart, and
That's
then you
right.
start to feel like a failure. And
Yeah.
then you start to feel, you know, the depression and whatever it is that you're feeling. And there is another way, and that's what I'm
Totally.
talking about. Like, how do you bring soul to your role?
Mhm.
And yeah, I hear you. I think that, I danced when I was younger,
Mhm.
but that doesn't matter. I still would, and I did yoga for years and years. I was still not in
Mhm.
touch with my body.
Mhm.
And I worked in a culture also where you couldn't even go to the bathroom,
Mhm.
right? You couldn't even go to the bathroom. And if you went, you kind of, it was sort of a sign of like failure,
Yeah.
taking care of yourself. And listen, I don't want to minimize the fact that when you're working in a culture like that, you're not going to change the culture,
Right.
right? And yet there still are, within the parameters of whatever culture you're working in and living in, ways of shifting,
Absolutely.
ways of reframing,
Mhm.
right? And the other thing I just want to say is that no one expects anybody, but I don't mean to say come away from this podcast and then think, oh my gosh, I have to figure out what to do.
Mm-mm.
No, no, no. The idea is to begin to find places where you can learn about how you can shift and reframe and
Mhm.
start to practice that gently. And part of this is about approaching this in a more gentle way, which can be a very new experience for a lot of people, being gentle with themselves.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I agree. I agree. I know we could do a whole episode on that. Kind of the
yeah,
imbalance of the maybe masculine, feminine energy, yin yang, all
absolutely.
of this in our culture. Yeah, it's very important. Well, Leah, this has been so wonderful. And I know you offer a lot of different services, practices, circles, different groups, one-on-one coaching, group work. So where can people connect with you, find out more about your work?
Well, they can connect with me on my website, which is risewellcoaching.com. And they can connect with me. Feel free to email me at leahcarla@risewellcoaching.com. And you'll see on my website the different offerings that I have. I have regular weekly free practice circles, a Mindful Monday half-hour practice circle, and a Thankful Thursday practice circle, which you're welcome to join. I'm building a lot of offerings that are going to start in the fall, soul collage offerings, circles for women, circles of grief,
Mhm.
circles for writing, um, and a variety of other circles that will be on the website on the offerings page for, if you're interested, you can just sign up.
Oh,
You'll put your name in there and then I'll send you more information. Um, yeah, and then the one-with-one coaching, and I call it one with one.
mm.
There's something about one-on-one that doesn't feel right to me.
Ah,
So it's a relationship that we create, and then also building um, possibility for group coaching as well. But I have one-with-one ways for you to work with me, as well as a colleague of mine, Jen, who offers mindfulness coaching, shorter coaching sessions. So you can just visit our website.
wonderful. Yeah, so much good stuff. Well, Leah, thank you so much for spending time with us, sharing your wisdom. This has been so wonderful, and I know this is going to benefit our listeners so
I'm
much.
so glad. Thank you so much. And everyone, do feel free to reach out with any questions, thoughts, comments.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much, Jesse.
Well, thank you for being here. And to all of our listeners, thank you so much for spending this time with us. This is Returning to Soul. We're so glad you're here. And until next time, be well.